We are here to make our veggie and egg toast cups today. We're making sort of breakfast for lunch, but this is a really fun thing to make for the kids. It's a great way to get some veggies into our food without having to really taste them like we're just eating plain veggies. And you can make a bunch of these and they stay in the fridge or even better in the freezer for a good amount of time. So you can like meal prep and have your breakfast toast cups, which are really great to have before school. Start the day off right, and you don't even have to worry about cooking. They can just come out of the freezer and pop in the microwave or in a toaster oven or something like that for a few minutes until they're nice and heated through, and you've got breakfast ready to go. Also literally ready to go. They're a really great to-go option too. I like anything that you can kind of rush out because I like to sleep as late as I possibly can. I did that when I was a kid in school. Just enough time to brush my teeth and get dressed and go to school, get the bus in time. So I haven't changed. We are going to read through our recipe carefully. We want our oven to be set right now to 375. And I'm using just a regular size muffin tin. It makes 12. If you have one of the like larger muffin tins that makes 6, and they're called the jumbo muffins, then that would be awesome too. You can use that. I'm going to use the regular size and I'll show you how, but I'm only going to make 6 of them in this pan just because that's what the recipe makes is 6. And so that is my pan. I have got all of my ingredients out. I still need to prep my veggies. I'm going to demonstrate cutting some of these things, getting that stuff together. I've got my wheat bread, which we're going to roll out with a rolling pin, which is a really kind of odd and fun thing to do. And I already have my butter melted. If you want to use margarine or even like a coconut oil, you could totally do that instead. I've got my eggs. I've got a little bit of a sharp cheddar shredded cheese and some baby spinach also. And then I know we said garnish. You could make some cooked bacon. I'm going to go meatless today. It's Wednesday. We'll just call it Meatless Wednesday for fun. And I'm using scallions instead of chives as a garnish. They're from the same family, just a little sort of subtle onion flavor. And because I just keep regrowing scallions, that's sort of a fun science project that I'm doing. So I have some more scallions to feed my project. So that's kind of everything that we need on our ingredient list. Like I said, I'm going to finish some of the prep first, chop up some of my veggies, and then we're going to roll out our bread, get that all ready with the melted butter, and start building our muffins and bake them. They only take about 15 to 20 minutes to bake, so we're looking at around an 18-minute average. It depends on your oven. And but like usual, we're going to check them halfway through and maybe do a quick rotation turn on them. I think that if you've been in our class before, you know onion ovens are they're never even, so we want to make sure our food gets cooked evenly. So that's the basic rundown. I'm going to get started on stuff, and then as usual, Melody is going to chime in with all of the way more awesome information than I get to learn fun new things every week, which is cool. And we're super glad we're working with some veggies again today. I know we took a little deviation with some of our classes, but we've got some really good healthy stuff working today. I'm using green bell pepper, just what I happen to find, and I use some of it for a different recipe. But if you have red or orange or yellow, that is perfectly fine. I'm using a little bit of cremini mushrooms. Also, that's what I could find. If you have white button mushrooms, that's fine. Even if you have something fun and unique like maitake or hanshimaiji Japanese mushrooms, fun. That's awesome. Like you can still just chop them up and put them in the same way. Even a portobello, you would just have to chop it up really, really small. But there you go. I'm using a nice plump medium red tomato. You could use any color of tomato. They come in all kinds of fun colors. I'll show you a couple of these heirlooms that I have from the farmer's market. They don't necessarily all look the same, but they are delicious and amazing and wonderfully natural. Not all tomatoes have to be red, but there you go. I am using my red one today just because I wanted some variety in my color here. I wanted to be able to have a nice, well-balanced dish. We're also going to chop up the scallions now. If you're using chives, you want to get your garnish ready in advance. so that we can kind of get rid of the chopping and be done with all of that at one time. So everything else is ready to go. I'm just going to chop some veggies here. Is there anything fun that we can learn about some of these ingredients?
Well, I love, again, that you're using variety. That's super important. Sorry, is this sound a little muffled for some reason? Or am I okay?
You sound great to me.
Okay, sorry. Just wanted to make sure it sounded
I know.
feedbacky. Okay. So yeah, I love that you are using a variety of different nutrients. I think it's very important to use different colors. A lot of the vegetables that you are using are antioxidant packed, which again is kind of been our theme throughout this whole experience. But mushrooms, tomatoes, bell pepper, all high in vitamin C, and lycopene, which is important for eye health. So that helps prevent cataracts and protect against free radicals, which are can lead to a lot of inflammation and disease in the body. So love that all the nutrients you're using are packed with that. Spinach, I don't know if you got to that yet, but you will. But that's also antioxidant packed as well and provides fiber and is awesome for aiding in constipation, which is great.
Awesome.
Anywho, but yeah, just love the variety. I don't think, I mean, we have different people that join us every week, so I know it's a lot of the same information, but definitely the theme with a lot of these veggies are the antioxidants that provides and helping us boost our immunity.
It's always really good to be reminded too about like just the simple fact of choosing a variety of colors when you're choosing your vegetables, just without even having to work very hard, you're guaranteeing that you're going to have a good variety of nutritional value. That's really important.
Absolutely. And if you want to get more vitamin D, both you and I learned that one time, you could put the mushrooms in the sun for about 10 to 30 minutes. And it actually helps absorb a lot of vitamin D, then you eat it. So that's another way to get your vitamin D, which both Julie and I learned from another
I love that. And I think especially these days, I know I am spending a lot less time outside. I don't have a yard. I live in an apartment. I know that you do have a yard, go out in it as often as you can, but those 20, 30 minutes a day out in the sun, sometimes I find that I don't get that. I have to like remind myself to go outside to get that. So even if I'm going to just eat some extra mushrooms, that'll help me.
Exactly, for sure. So yeah, just setting those out, again, another science project for you. Just put them out in the sun, set a timer, and then go ahead and chop them up like Julia's doing for your recipe. That will get a little bit of extra vitamin D in there, which is another immune boosting nutrient.
Sure. So important these days. I mean, it's important every day, but just, wow, so important.
For sure.
So you see, everything I'm doing is just a pretty rough dice. And I want everything to be kind of small chopped up so that it fits into our muffin cup nicely and doesn't become just like a big chunk of one thing when we want everything to blend together really well. So I've got a nice, pretty small dice, mushroom and bell pepper already. I think that's enough. We only need about a quarter of a cup, like a packed quarter of a cup of each ingredient. So I've got my bell pepper, mushroom. Tomatoes can be kind of an annoying thing to cut, and here's the trick. You want to use a serrated knife. One of them that looks like a saw, that looks like the bread knife variety that has the teeth on it. Sometimes they sell something that's specifically called a tomato knife, and that's fine, but usually if you just have a regular bread knife, that's the perfect one to use for tomatoes. So I want to cut this in half. I'm going to just leave that stem on for now because I'm going to end up cutting that whole little root out by cutting a little triangle into the tomato. And then I'm going to take that stem and that whole little center root out where it's a little bit thick there. And just take that whole bit out, put that in the compost if you have that. Down into that little V, that triangle, and then it comes right out. And then I'm going to just kind of very small dice this tomato. So to do that, I want to first cut it into slices, keeping very good care of where my other fingertips are. And I'm using the knife like a saw. You want to actually saw back and forth through that tomato skin. It helps you cut through it much safer than if you're trying to cut with a regular knife. Once you have your tomatoes into their slices, then you can cut the slices into what we call batons, our little sticks, which is just like a little strip. You cut it the long way. And then you want to cut the long way into the short way. And that's how you get your diced tomato. The whole time you're sawing through that skin. That's how you can really chop through tomato skin very well. If you have a very, very sharp chef knife or a good chef knife, then it'll work. But in the end, it's going to push down on your tomatoes and squeeze out a lot more of the juices. If you saw through it, then you can cut them kind of gently, and they keep a little bit more of their shape, which is nice when you're making like a salsa or something where you want to actually see the diced tomato and still so it looks like a nice little chunk. The serrated knife is a good trick for that. You don't have to be perfect. All right, plenty of tomato from that one. So I've got my prep here. I'm gonna clean up some of that tomato water. This is a juicy, ripe tomato. Ready to eat. Okay. Basically, we're ready to build, but we need to roll out our bread. So I'm gonna get a new cutting board so I can just leave that stuff there. Voila. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a large jar or like an olive oil bottle or a wine bottle if your parents have some wine around. And you just want to roll this out. We're trying to make our bread nice and thin, but not completely paper. I'll show you. We're just trying to extend it out a little bit longer than it is. So you start in the middle and press down and roll it out. First the width, the wide way, and then the long way. Once it's nice and flat, you'll see that's about as flat as I can get it. That's perfect. Once we get all of our bread rolled out, we're going to do 6 slices of bread to make 6 muffins, or toast cups. Then we're going to cut off the crust. You don't want to cut the crust off now because that's actually what's holding the edges of the bread together. If we cut the crust off now and then rolled it out, the edges of the bread would become too thin and they would start to tear. So we want to kind of leave it until after we roll it. So you start in the middle, press down, and then you push outward and then backward, and then forward and then backward, all the while gently pushing down. Kind of use your whole body as the weight behind it. And that puts it lets gravity do the work for you that way. Okay, nice and easy from the center out. And then long way, same thing from the center out. This is kind of a funny thing to do, rolling out our bread. But we wanted to have a nice thin crust so that it lines our muffin tin really well. And so that it toasts up and becomes kind of crispy, like if we made a quiche with a pie crust. It's nice and thin on the crust. That's what we're kind of mimicking here with our bread. It's nice that we're using good whole wheat bread. Hopefully you guys found some good whole wheat or whole grain bread. All right, one more.
And I will say, just add something too, just because a bread is dark or brown does not mean that it's actually whole wheat. So definitely take a look at the food label, make sure it says 100% whole wheat, or the first ingredient needs to be whole wheat flour, durum wheat, stone wheat, something like that as the first ingredient. Also, make sure that it has at least 3 grams of fiber. That's kind of a really good indication that it's a true whole grain. Because there's a lot of breads out there that are, you know, they have grains in them, you know, 12 grain, 7 grain, but they're not actually truly a whole grain. So definitely take a look at that.
And a lot of bread companies that they don't have any shame in using ingredients like molasses just to make their bread look brown because people think that brown bread is healthier for them.
Right.
Okay, so now we've got our nice thinned out, flattened out pieces of bread. I'm just going to stack them up and cut the crusts off all together because that's more efficient to do it all at once. And make sure that they're nice and stacked evenly though, so you're not cutting them unevenly. So when you cut down, you're using your bread knife and sawing through just like those tomatoes. First the bottom crust, that will kind of give you a starting off point to square this off. Then the side crust, try to cut just the crust, just right off to the edge. And then that top crust, if you have good, I don't know, it depends on the bread you have. Sometimes it's kind of squared off, sometimes it's rounded. Just kind of like follow the shape of the bread and cut as much of that crust off as you can. And then we have our bread like pie crust here, which is really fun. These crusts that you cut off, if your parents or you like to make other foods, this is a great thing to save and make breadcrumbs out of. You can just put them in your food processor and pulse them up, and you make homemade breadcrumbs. And if you're using a good like whole wheat or whole grain bread, especially, then there's a lot of good nutrition in these crusts. And so you could make like breadcrumbs and then bread some fish or bread. Toss the breadcrumbs on top of, some really healthy mac and cheese or something, better than getting store-bought breadcrumbs. There you go. One way you could use that. I'm going to set this aside. We have our crust. We're going to brush them with melted butter. So I only had 1 tablespoon of melted butter. It doesn't need to be like dripping or soaking. We're just lightly brushing each side. Just a little bit so that it kind of helps it toast up and get a little bit of flavor in there. Just a little bit on each one. Definitely not spread all the way out or soaking all the way through. We're just giving it a light brushing all the way over. And then we're going to cut these in half in triangles, or as close to a triangle as we get, if it's kind of rectangular. And then we're going to line our muffin cups and get these in the oven. I think we are just on time. We need to toast the bread part in the oven first for about 5 minutes, just until they kind of dry out and get a little bit crispy. And then we're going to take the muffin pan out. This is when parents need to help. It's going to be hot. And then we're going to put all of our stuff into the toast cups and let them finish baking. We have to toast the bread up a little bit first. It's called par baking, partially baking. We par bake it because if we just poured the egg onto the raw bread, it would get too soggy and we wouldn't have like a toasty toast cup. And we want to have a toasty toast cup. This is called egg toast cups. So we want it to be nice and toasty. So giving it a little bit of a head start is what's going to help us. So we've got our butter-lined bread. Cut them in half diagonally. If you're using these small muffin cups like I am, I'm going to go ahead and cut them into fourths, because then I can kind of maneuver the triangles into each cup a little bit better. Let me move this here. I can show you, making a bit of a bread mess. That's great though. Means we're having fun when we're making a little bit of a mess. So cut sides are going to face each other so that pointy sides are going out. So we want to kind of line them in like that. Can you see that? You want to kind of overlap them so that the bottom is covered all the way. If you need to use 3, that is okay. I think I might need to use 3. Yeah, that's going to be good. You want to press it in there, press the bread together, press it down, kind of squeeze it all in, make a little uniform shape. I think we had a question.
No, it was just a comment actually. So you're good.
Thank you. I know you're keeping track. All right.
Oh,
I'm gonna space these out a little bit. Like I said, I'm only making 6, but this muffin pan makes 12. If I give them a little bit of room away from each other and they're not all right next to each other, then the heat will move out a little bit better and spread out more evenly. And so I'm just gonna kind of space them out a little bit, not all these 6, you know what I mean? Side together, overlapping, with the pointy side out, so it kind of looks like a little tulip cup of bread. Tulips are my favorite flower. Side note. And like I said, the more you kind of press it into each other and it kind of squeezes into each other, the more it's going to hold all of the ingredients inside of itself, and you won't have leaky egg on the bottom. But that's okay too, because it'll still bake up and still be one nice unit. So it'll still be delicious. Let's see which one. Some of them are going to be next to each other. Okay. Like I said, it should only take about 5 minutes, especially if your oven is nice and hot and preheated. This bread is very thin. We just did a nice fun job of thinning it out really well, so it won't take long to get to where we want it to be. Like I said, we're just par baking it, which is partially. I guess I could have done this. Let me do this. Okay. That's our 6. I'm going to put these into the oven. You know, I've got a little hole down in one, and since I have extra bread, I'm just going to tear off a little piece and patch it up by pressing that piece into that hole, just to make sure that I've got a good solid foundation. You can do that with pie dough also if you're making an actual quiche. You get a little tear in your dough, you can just use a little bit of a sacrifice. That's what we would call that, and put a little piece down. All right, I'm going to use this sheet pan to put it on, and then in the oven, just because then later it's going to make it a lot easier and safer to take in and put, you know, to take out and then put back in. Sometimes it's a little awkward trying to grab a muffin pan with like a mitt or a towel. It's an awkward thing to grab hold of, so grabbing hold of that sheet tray is a lot easier. Right on the middle rack in the middle of the oven, 375, just for about 5 minutes. See? And then I want to kind of straighten up and make sure that I have everything ready, because when that comes out, we want to be able to fill them right away and get them right back into the oven. We don't want it to cool down too much. We want that cooking process to keep going in the bread. So I'm just going to make sure that we are situated here. Oh, I still need to cut my scallions. Here, I'll do that. Just so that they are ready to go for the finished effect. I've got my spinach, got a little bit of cheese. You want to make sure that you're ready to go with everything that you need. Move these veggies over. I'm just going to chop a little bit of scallion. I'm going to put you, here we go.
Someone asked what rack they should put it on if they only have 2 racks. I guess one on each, right? Or
in the oven.
Or does it depend on your oven, probably?
Well, it does. I only have 2 racks also, but there are multiple slots that you can move the racks to in the oven, and there usually is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, usually. And so what you're looking for is the one right in the middle so that you have 2 above and 2 below. and so that anywhere where that rack is kind of mostly in the middle of the oven, mostly centered in the middle as much as you can, that's what you're looking for. Oh, my battery is running low. Hold on a second. My apologies, everybody. Lots of classes today. I want to make sure that we don't get cut off here. So I'm going to plug in. There we go. So yeah, even if you only have two actual racks, just try to position one of them as center as you possibly can. That's all. I usually leave one of my racks always right in the middle, and then one of them kind of closer to the bottom so that I can get like a nice roast on certain things. So I've got my scallions. I just tore off the very top where it was a little wilty and brown. And I'm just going to chop these up into little slices so that we can garnish with that later. If you're making these to store in the freezer or something, then you don't want to garnish it yet. You want to save that for when you're actually going to eat it. I'm going to add these to my lovely vase full of green onions. You know, it's a beautiful bouquet of flowers. And it's delicious.
And honestly, thank you for bringing up the, kind of making your own fruits and veggies, because now is literally the perfect time to start a little home garden, or because you're home a lot, so you can kind of tend to it. It's better for the environment. You don't have to make as many trips. There, oh,
chives. I'm growing chives in a teeny tiny teacup pot. Like, it doesn't take much. I don't even have to go outside. Just open the window, and you can grow tomatoes and other things like that are really great, like patio types of foods. Yeah, definitely now's the time to have fun. Plus, I mean, I'm spoiled. I grew up gardening a lot, getting your hands in the dirt and in the earth and watching something grow from it. There's almost nothing that feels quite like that. There's nothing, yeah. All right, I've got spinach, I've got cheese, I've got my garnish for after, I've got my veggies to go in, I've got my eggs, key ingredient. If you cooked off some bacon and you have that chopped up and you want to put that in as a garnish at the end, fantastic. That's really delicious. You can also chop up some cooked bacon and put it in the cooking process with these veggies if you wanted to have some meat. Or you could do that with a lot of alternative plant-based, like you could even do turkey bacon. You could do that soy tofu sausage stuff. There's a lot of different options if you want to put some protein but avoid maybe meat. Chicken, if you have some leftover chicken, maybe from the dinner the night before, would be really great to chop up and add into this. I really am, I'm just trying to go heavy on the vegetables today. I really like the idea of making this a solid vegetarian version. So we're about 30 seconds away from taking these out of the oven. Again, I'm using my very clean and very dry, important that it's dry, towel to remove the pan out of the oven. And then just double checking, all we're going to be doing is taking them out, putting in our cheese, our veggies, our spinach leaves, putting that right into each cup, and then cracking an egg into each one. We're not scrambling the eggs, we're not mixing them first, we're cracking our egg right into each cup. So it's going to be just a nice baked egg right in the middle. That's our timer, obviously, so we're going to get this out. Let's see. Yeah, okay. They're not completely hard or completely toasted yet, but they've gotten dried out on the corners here, and the bottoms are nice and like well molded together because of the butter. Let's see. I'm going to turn this now. Challenge. Good enough? Yeah. Okay. So like I said, cheese first, just so that it gets nice and melty. You can use any kind of cheese. Definitely look for like a low fat or part skim mozzarella would be a really great option. I'm using a sharp cheddar just because it's what I had and I don't want to shop for unnecessary items these days. So it's about half a teaspoon of cheese in each one. Just sprinkling. And then we're just going to sprinkle an assortment of our veggies in each one as well. You don't need a ton. I think that I said it's about between a teaspoon and 2 teaspoons of each vegetable. It depends on how big you cut them. It depends on how many other extra veggies you might be adding into yours. Things like that. If you're adding a lot of extra veggies in addition to these, then you would put a little bit less of each one just because they're not that big of a muffin cup, you know? You don't want it to be too overflow. You can, this is the fun part, use the ingredients, the veggies that you're putting in there, to push down on the bottom of the muffin cup. The more stuff you put in, you can kind of squish it down. If you need help, because this is a hot pan, the pan, I don't want you to forget that that pan itself is hot. So I'm being very careful and only touching the inside of the food itself, where I'm not going to get burned on the pan. I've got my bell pepper and mushroom in there already. I'm going to add in my tomato, a little bit of that. Okay, and then this is the fun part. We're going to just crack an egg right into each one. So you don't want to crack your egg on the pan. You might accidentally get a shell in your food, or you might accidentally make a big mess on your muffin tin. We want to keep that nice and clean on top so that when it goes in the oven, it doesn't make a big mess. So you crack your egg on a flat surface, like on your cutting board or on your counter where it's kind of like safe, just right in the middle of the side of the egg so that you can stick your thumbs in and pull it apart and let that egg just fall into the muffin cup. I have a little bit of a spill over, but I'm okay with that. That is why we also want to make sure we kind of squished everything down a little bit. Might squish my stuff down a little bit more. Oops. Just so that my eggs don't all overflow. This is also, you want to use, the recipe calls for medium-sized eggs. That makes a difference. If you're using a jumbo egg, it will definitely be too much of an egg for a small muffin cup like this. Let's say you're making yours in one of the big muffin cups, like the jumbo muffins, then you can use jumbo eggs. That would definitely fill that up nicely. I think I'm using large eggs, which is why I'm having a little trouble. But that egg white is still going to bake up fine. It's right on the edge, right around the lip of my muffin cup, so it's just fitting. You want to let that slide out pretty gently so that you don't break the yolk. I personally like to have a little bit of a runny yolk. I like sunny side up eggs. But that's a very personal thing to each person, right? Everybody might like their eggs a little bit different. So you need to then let yours cook a little bit longer if you like your egg yolks to be a little bit more done. If you don't like a runny yolk, you want a medium or a hard set yolk, then you are going to let yours cook for maybe 25 minutes. I'm going to check mine at about 10 so I could spin them, and then hopefully they're done at about 15. Oh, you know what? I forgot the spinach. You can, if you make a mistake like me, you can always do things like this. Watch. I'm going to try this on a couple of them. You can kind of tearing up a few leaves of spinach and just tucking them in there, making sure that they soak in underneath the egg. Quick save. I'm just going to do that to a couple of them, have some without spinach. And then we want to put a little tiny bit of salt and pepper on top. We haven't seasoned anything in here yet. I even have unsalted butter, so the butter that I brushed the bread with is not even going to help. So a little, very small amount of salt and pepper will make all of this come together and taste really, really good. So just a sprinkle of each on top. I think in total, we're looking at maybe a half a teaspoon of salt total. So you're just kind of sprinkling like a little teeny tiny pinch on each one. And then with the pepper, if you don't like pepper, don't put pepper. That's a very personal thing. If you do like pepper, put a lot of pepper. That's entirely up to you. I'm just gonna put a little tiny sprinkle on each one because I like the flavor of it, but I don't want my egg cup to just taste like pepper. All right, now we're going in the oven. Like I said, I'm gonna set my timer for 10. Could take anywhere up to 20, but I want to check it partway through, give it a spin, give it a jiggle. What we're looking for is a solidly baked through egg white. And for me, like a still runny yolk. That could be different for what you're looking for. If you're looking for that solid egg yolk, then you're looking for a much paler yellow and a firm yolk. If you're looking for medium, then, you know, maybe only about the 20 minutes max probably, and then let it set, and it'll keep cooking for a little bit. For me, as soon as the egg whites are done, I'm done. That's kind of all I'm looking for on mine, and I think that's the traditional way of serving this. Even if you wanted to freeze them, you could freeze them with the runny yolk. Just don't break it before you put it in the freezer. I guess that's sort of the only thing that you have to be careful about. Let's see, I'm going to reuse my Ziploc. We've got a little bit of prep left on my cutting board. I don't know about you guys. You can always make extra muffins. You can definitely put this kind of delicious stuff into an omelet. You can put it on top of a salad. You can put it in a stir fry. You can make a breakfast burrito. There's a lot of amazing things that you can do with these types of ingredients once you already have them all chopped up and ready. I want to make sure I still have my scallions over here. That's going to go on top. If you have other things that you like to garnish with salsa or hot sauce or things like that, that would be a really great option. You could get that ready now so that you have that to put on top. This is another night that you might be having breakfast for dinner, which is fantastic.
It's toasting. How'd it go?
There we go. You did it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so everyone knows too about the eggs that, you know, I know they have a reputation for being high in cholesterol, but actually they are finding more recently that dietary cholesterol, so cholesterol coming from our foods, does not actually raise our blood cholesterol. And eggs are actually great. They provide a lot of nutrients. So everything in moderation. You know, if you're eating 20 eggs a day, probably not great, but, you know, again, 1, 2 a day is fine. Even 3 is fine a day. Obviously, this is a special recipe, so you're not eating this exact thing every day, but eggs do provide a lot of great protein, B vitamins, energy, vitamins A and D, which are immune boosting nutrients. So definitely don't discredit eggs. They're solid food.
Yeah, I love them. They're so versatile. You don't even have to kind of cook them in a breakfast way. They're great in like fried rice. They're great in a lot of different things. I like them in soups, you know, and my ramen. The eggs are a really wonderful thing. I know they took a really bad reputation for a while.
Yeah, and now I think we're being recognized as a food that, or hopefully that's our goal, is to educate people that
Right.
they're not that bad for you. They actually do help raise your good cholesterol too. So it's complete opposite what we always thought.
That is actually literally the complete opposite of what everybody thought. That's so interesting.
Right. Yeah. But again, everything, you know, in moderation, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't recommend 10 eggs a day, but a few is good.
No, yeah. And definitely, especially if you're sort of what we might call an average person, I think. I read an article once, and I might be misremembering it, but there was somebody on an online site who was, maybe 5'8", 5'9", 145, 150 pounds, who tried to do the Rock's diet for one day. The actor and wrestler Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, who is not an average person at all. He is a massive human being, and he eats like I think by 10 in the morning there was something like 1,600 calories in just protein alone. Like
God.
He ate like tons of eggs and fish in the morning. It was just this huge amount of food that this normal, this sort of average person, he tried it, and by halfway through the day, he had to go seek medical attention.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I did not hear about this. But...
Yeah, it was funny. Like, he was doing it for an article, and he was okay. He was just like, he was clearly over-consuming things that his body was not used to having sitting in all in one day, and it was all for an article. And he realized, it was not going well, so he stopped it as soon as he didn't feel well. But yeah, don't try that. That's the point. That's the lesson learned. Don't try that. Our bodies are all so different. I could never eat what someone like that eats in a day. It's very interesting to think about doing.
For sure.
But yeah, he eats like 6 eggs every morning, and I guess that works for him, but not for me.
Right, exactly.
This is very exciting that these are baking. I love baked eggs. It's going to be really nice. So we have our garnish ready. If you have any cleaning up to do, this is a good time to catch up on anything. What was I going to go over? Next week, let me check my notes. I think, yeah, we're going to go right from breakfast for dinner into dinner for dinner. And next week I was thinking we were going to do a baked whole wheat pasta, like a baked ziti with veggies and a homemade tomato sauce and some whole wheat garlic bread and like a really nice kind of comforting Italian dinner. That's what we're going to make together next week. I'm really excited.
I never tried that Italian, that's for sure. Who
Another
doesn't?
way to really, really fill our meal up with vegetables, I think, is a baked pasta. Traditionally, we see them just slathered in a lot of cheese, and we'll use a little bit of cheese, but it's as long as we have a really good, flavorful homemade sauce with all those veggies in there, then that to me makes a really good, like, comforting pasta dish. And so I'm excited to do that with everybody. I will send out the recipe tomorrow, so make sure that you check your emails, have your parents check theirs, so if they don't see it by the end of the day tomorrow, to let me know, because that is going to, I'm going to send that out, and I'm excited. We're going to make that tomato sauce from scratch, not like canned scratch, from actual scratch.
We have 2 more left, correct? Till where is this our
calendar? Yeah, we have 2 more left.
Wow. That went by fast.
I know. Is it only 2? Yeah.
So I feel like this is the 6th one.
I think we might have 3 more.
Oh, 3 more. Okay. Great.
We have 3 more, and if there's any super special requests, then let me know, because we are running out of sessions. But let's see some of the ideas that I had. We were going to do that Italian awesome meal. I would like to maybe do 1 session of baking. We could make some homemade granola bars and snack bars and things like that, and some oatmeal cookies. And then if anybody has any special requests, that would be really fun. Can you make bacon wrapped chicken? That's a great question. We could get into do like a gourmet kind of a dinner meal as our final night. That would be fun, huh? All right, that's a good idea. I'll think about some accessible and fun, healthy ideas that we can learn, like a fancy plated gourmet Iron Chef kind of a thing. That sounds fun. Great idea. Not sure about the bacon wrapped chicken. I think I like that. Have you ever had bacon wrapped scallops? That's delicious and tasty. Fun to cook also. All right, my timer is about to go off. I have my spidey senses tingling. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. I want to take a look here. I'm going to show you what's happening because this is a good example of some of the unevenness of an oven. You can see, I hope, that closest to me, the whites are getting nice and cooked around the edges. Come over here, but then like on this side, it's not at all. So I want to make sure that I spin my dish around in the oven to give it that 180-degree turn to make sure that I'm having a nice even cook throughout. But that firm, like solid white is what we're looking for in the egg whites. We want that to be like a good, like it would look in a fried egg or a poached egg or a soft-boiled egg. You want a good firm white. And then I'm gonna try to keep that yolk runny for myself because I prefer it that way, personal preference. Let's see. It's only gonna take another, I'm gonna guess 6 minutes or so. Get that set. If anybody has any questions about this or any of the other recipes or things coming up, now is a great time. Let me think. Such an easy one to clean up too. I don't even have to like do a bunch of dishes yet. It's gonna be my cutting board and my muffin pan. Like there's really a great, this is a simple cleanup recipe. I'm gonna teach you a little trick because I'm looking at it and thinking about it. I love this. This was my grandmother's rolling pin. This goes back a long time. You don't want to ever put this in a dishwasher or submerge it and soak it in water, okay? If you have a plastic or a ceramic rolling pin, those have different cleaning methods. You can do different things with that. But if you have a good wooden rolling pin, even the ones that are shaped a little bit differently. Oh, strawberry banana milkshake. And you're making me super hungry right now too. That sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I think that we will do a baking class for sure with some dessert treats. So I'll think of some other ideas for that class. That's a fun one. Maybe we can make some frozen yogurt. I really like, I've made frozen yogurt popsicles in the past with the kids class. Those turn out pretty well.
It's starting to get hot, so that's good.
Yeah, it's a really great summer treat. And you can make them in ice cube trays or you can make them in full-size popsicle molds. So I'll add that to the list. You just gave me kind of a different idea, but I like it. The rolling pin, like I said, just don't soak it in water. It's really, oh, are you telling us the recipe? This is so awesome. I love it. I'm going to write this down when I'm done. When you are cleaning your rolling pin, you take kind of a damp towel. If you have chunky, dry bits of flour on it, like if you're using it for baking, then you want to scrape those off using a dough scraper or maybe just like the back end of a knife. You can kind of scrape away any dried flour, like I'm doing like that with the back end, not the sharp end, the back end of a knife. You can do that before and then use a damp towel to just wipe your rolling pin off, like this. You don't want to ever soak it or really get too much soapy water in there. Wood is porous. It will get inside of the wood and it can start to create molds or bacteria growth, and you just don't want that to happen because it'll ruin your rolling pin and it'll make your food gross. So important cleaning tips, just don't ever get it too wet, never ever let it soak. And if you need to, like if something is stuck to it, then use the scraping method. Use something else to kind of scrape it before you try to wash it. Lesson about rolling pins randomly, but there you go. Super helpful tip. I know people that learn that the hard way, unfortunately. And if you soak anything made of wood for too long, if you have wooden utensils like spoons or spatulas, then they can actually mold or start to rot. The wood is not really meant to soak in water for a really long time. If you get the treated bamboo kinds of utensils, those will last longer. You still don't want to let it just soak though for long periods of time. Try to wash it as quickly as you can and then dry it off. Good tip for any kind of like wooden kitchen tools. I think that is it for helpful, fun tips based on this recipe. Oh, you could put the bacon on the edge of the cup. Like if you wanted to make these super meaty, you could cut your bacon strip in half before cooking. This is raw bacon. And then kind of line the outside of the muffin cup with that strip of bacon, and then put your toast and your other stuff in there and follow the recipe the same way. Then you get kind of like a little bacon wrapper around this little breakfast cup. So if bacon is a part of your diet and you're not eating a lot of it, especially if you get that good like nitrate-free kind of stuff, then that is another alternative method to making this recipe. I'm getting antsy and impatient. I want to look at them again. Ooh, they're starting to smell good, like eggs and veggies roasting. The whites are almost done completely, except right on the very, very top, right around the yolk. They're still kind of a little too not set up, a little too jiggly for my liking. So I'm going to hold off just for another few minutes. Looks like until my timer is done. I know that's what you get for being impatient. Just wait for the timer to be done. We're going to send out the email with all of the really awesome notes that Melody adds and all of her amazing nutrition tips, so check for that. I think, I can't make any promises, but I have been told that some of the past Zoom classes they're being caught up on, so keep checking the website for any of our past recordings. Hopefully they're getting uploaded a little bit more and more and more. Yeah, we're really just kind of waiting for the pièce de résistance, the finished product here. It's going to all happen right in the last couple minutes of class, which is really well timed out. You can see that it's actually pretty simple, this recipe, especially once you've got everything chopped up and in the oven. Then you can do all your dishes, you can get everything cleaned up so that once you're done cooking, you can really kind of just enjoy the food and get it cooled down and put away if that's what you're doing. It's great. I know that one day again we will be able to gather, and I look forward to some picnics and some brunches. And this is a really, really awesome thing to make if you've got lots of people coming over, because everyone can kind of have their own. It's really nice to serve individual servings of things when you have company. And yeah, it's like I said, it's really good cold or piping hot or anything in between. So if you take it with you as like a car snack, if you take it with you and then eat it once you get to work, if you have it in your lunch bag in a Tupperware, you can even have it, you know, as your snack. It's a great, really versatile little cup. We are so close. Here, I want to make space, and then I'll just be able to show you right underneath the camera when it's done. I'm going to save these veggies, and like I said, they're really great in a lot of different things. I'm going to be making a breakfast burrito with my leftover chopped up veggies. Yay! All right, get this set off. Here, my dry towel, timer off. Oh yeah. Okay. Gosh, it's gonna be so good. You want to make sure that you're putting something hot down on the counter, even if you have a nice, good tile safe counter. Just be careful, put something down below it. And then, because this is very hot, and if anyone else in your house might come through the kitchen, I like to put a towel right on the edge. If it's a pot, you put the towel on the handle. Anywhere where people can see that this is still hot. That is a signal to people in the house that this is a hot pan, so that they don't want to come over and grab it in case they didn't see you just take it out of the oven. Plus, it helps me remember not to touch the edge of the pan if I walk away and then I'm like, oh, right, it's still hot. Okay, so we're looking at how pretty these look. You can see that my yolk is still jiggly and, well, nice deep orange, golden yellow, which it's not fully cooked through. If it were fully cooked, it would be a very, very light pale yellow, which if that's what you like, that's what you're looking for, a very light pale yellow. Let me try to raise this up a little bit. I don't know if a close-up looks any better, but you can get a good shot of what that turns out like. The toast gets nice and toasty on the corners, and it kind of hardens up into a crust. And I'm going to sprinkle with my scallions, just on a couple of them. I'm only eating a couple of them today. The rest I'm going to let cool down to room temperature safely, and then I'm going to wrap them up and put them in my freezer because I really like having breakfast ready to go. Cooking for other people is my favorite thing. Cooking for myself sometimes becomes tedious, just like everybody else, and I like to have things ready, just like other people. So I'm just going to garnish a couple of these, but I do want to garnish them and think about how pretty they are, because the prettier my food is, the more I want to eat it. So the fun about taking these out, you want to let them cool down just a little bit longer, but I want to show you this before class ends. Let them cool down a little bit more, but the reason we let the toast become extended points on the edge was because it looks pretty, and because it's going to help us take them out of the muffin pan. So you can just use your fingers once they're cool, or have your parents help you. You can use a butter knife or a little cake spatula. Yeah, I think we might have to do that. To run around the edges to kind of loosen it up. It's definitely baked in there. I might have needed to have put more butter. No, I'm just going to run this right around the edge, hold my pan safely, and just run this around. If you have a little butter knife, that will work. You don't have to have a cake spatula. Just kind of loosening it around the edges. And then we're going to pull it out. Hopefully it comes right out. I think that my egg might need to cook a bit more. No, I know what I need. This is what you need. You need a big spoon. Something that is larger than a regular tablespoon. I've got a very cool serving spoon. Yeah, and you can get in, down, and scoop it up and out. My bread was still a little soft because I am taking this out while it's still hot. So I got a little bit of bread left down on the bottom, but that is okay. I'm just going to tuck it right back on there. So you can run your spoon or your knife or your little cake spatula around the edge, right around the edge, separating the bread and the cooked egg from the side of the pan. Definitely have help doing this if you're doing it while they're still warm. That's why letting them cool down is perfectly fine. Once you've got the edge separated, kind of get underneath, make sure that you can pull the bottom out. Get my spoon. Try to get in between the bread and the sides and the bottom of the pan. Scoop that up. That is so cute. All right, the others I'm gonna let them cool completely because that's gonna make it a lot easier and cleaner of an extraction process. But just look at that adorableness. You have got your whole breakfast in a little toast cup.
Yeah. Maybe not a good date food, huh? To bite into it. But
It's gonna be very messy if you just bite right into it. You have to do that over a plate. I think I'm probably gonna eat this with a fork and a knife.
yeah, probably better to do that.
I'm a slob and it will end up all over me.
I'm looking at it too. I'm going, oh my goodness, for me also.
Yeah. You know, you can definitely put on a bib or a towel if you need to and just like go to town. I think a fork and knife is gonna help me in the process a lot.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. But that's a fun part about eating fun food like this. If you eat it over your plate and you've got a napkin handy, then have fun with your food. Have fun eating it, have fun making it, have fun with it. This is a really fun and recipe, a simple, straightforward recipe. The butter on the pan, on the bread, you might want to make a note on your recipe to spray the pan. I don't think I have that on there. So that might be a helpful thing that we all just learned here together. It just depends on how well the bread is buttered and which side of the butter bread you put down. And this is a very dense whole wheat bread. I think it just kind of soaked up the butter instead of using it as a lubrication on the pan. So maybe a little pan spray or a little canola oil would help. But they're still, when they're cool, they're going to come out a lot easier. That's a good spoon. I love spoons. I collect spoons.
Cool.
That's a good spoon, Charlie. Good job. Are you ready to scoop yours out, or are they still baking?
3, 2, 1 second.
Nice. Make sure they're cooked how you like them. You may want to make sure that the yolks are how you want them to be.
We're gonna take a peek at them.
Okay, awesome.
Spoon.
It's a great spoon. All right. Well,
They need more time.
yeah, that can happen sometimes, and it's definitely a personal thing. You want to
10 minutes.
let her talk to you. No, that's okay. That's okay. I love it. You're so excited. That makes me really happy. But send a picture, okay, when they're all done, so that I can see how they came out. Especially if you're going to break into that yolk tonight. That's the money shot. That's the whole exciting point. If you cut into that yolk and it's all nice and runny and perfect, then that's where you take the little boomerang video or something. Awesome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for cooking. Thank you for playing along. I have so much fun in this class and with these recipes. I am going to stop the recording.